So, I have 100 subscribers. It's time to get experimental. Today, we're going to be looking into music. I'm just kidding. We're going to still do comics here because that's my bread and butter. But I am going to try out different formats every so often. So we're going to see if this format lasts. We'll see if there's another episode. Maybe there won't be. Maybe there will. You never know. Subscribe to find out. We'll make it like a cliffhanger. But until then, let's talk about comics from my archives. Now, today. And there's more where this came from.
The Horror at Red Hook.
So, what is this format going to be? Well, I'm going to try and show off a bunch of different comics from my archives. Maybe there'll be a common theme or something. Today, we're going to show off different comics that come from different places. Not much of a theme. There's like a variety of comics, honestly. But I figure we'll go into just show how different the American scene can be sometimes. And these are comics not a lot of people tend to talk about. We're going to go over weird ones, people, but we'll start off with a very simple one, and we'll start off with Red Hook by Hapsiel. I hope I pronounce this correctly, otherwise he'll probably kill me. Red Hook is actually a webcomic. You can read it on Webtoon. I know, right? I have a printed Webtoon. Ooh. Look, I love comics, man. So if there's a chance... And Hapsiel has been a creator I like a lot. He worked on The Quitter with Harvey P. Carr, who made American Splendor. That's actually how I first knew about him. And he also did a bunch of other work with DCAU Batman comics. Great artist. And this series is kind of a spiritual successor to a series he did with Mark Waid over at Archie called The Fox. Really good stuff. It's basically about a guy who tries to be normal, but keeps on having to be a superhero. It's crazy, it's fun, there's skull women, good stuff. So this comic is kind of crazy, Silver Age wacky. Okay, a little bit. It's black and white, it's pretty interesting. The art is really good. And you get luchador villains, you get crazy stuff, you get weird love stories. It changes genre for the second volume. It's crazy, crazy stuff. And I just kind of want to talk about it since not a lot of people tend to talk about webcomics, especially because this is a superhero webcomic. Now, not a lot of creators do superhero webcomics. I mean, I could bring up The Lightbringer. Now, but that's kind of that's interesting. But it's very rare to actually find them because superhero comics tend to be dominated by Marvel and DC, and I understand not everyone wants to do them. To me, it's like, who cares? Do whatever story you want. Look, if we have to be accepting of any time you want to do a story, or else we let other mediums take over. And I'm not ready to live in a world where pirate comics are the only thing. I've seen the Watchmen world. It's terrible. But Red Hook specifically is a pretty good comic. It's about a guy who starts out as a criminal, but ends up in, well, stealing the heart of altruism, becoming a hero. And believe me, it's funny, it's irreverent, it's pretty good. It feels like an old school comic in a lot of ways. It's meant to be kind of crazy, and honestly, it's a little memey. I will admit that, but a lot of people aren't talking about it. So I'm gonna say this: give Red Hook a shot, because you get a lot of variety of things. And also, I mean, look, there's a giant mouse robot with, like, you know, a head. That's cool, right? That's cool. That's comics. You can go into crazy comics, guys, It's pretty cool. Like, comics are fun sometimes. They bring me so much pain. But that's Red Hook in a nutshell. And like I said, we'll have other comics to talk about. But the question is, well, what am I going to go to next? I started off with a superhero webcomic. How about a crime indie comic? This is Kane by Paul Grist. Paul Grist is an artist who I personally love for a series called Jack Staff. Jack Staff is a superhero comic I like a lot, but this is what he started out on. Well, he started out on a bunch of stuff, honestly. Like, he has Grendel, Mudman. Like, he's been all over the place in terms of comics. And honestly, this is a really good crime book. Crime is one of those genres in comics that is always kind of around. You always see at least a couple crime books no matter what. It's at least secondary to superhero work, honestly. You have Criminal on the Market, you have Ed Brubaker with his stuff. Like, honestly, the EC crime comics are classics. Like I said, well, and Sin City, of course. Well, let's not forget about Sin City. A lot of people tend to forget about Sin City sometimes. I don't know what's up with that. But crime comics are kind of a huge thing, and to me are very important. This is about a cop. And you don't get a lot of these crime detective procedural stuff. And this is a very British comic, and I mean it. This is like a classic British TV show. I grew up on weird BBC cop shows when I was a young lad in England.
Oh no.
You better have paid your TV license, sir.
Well, no, I haven't, but
Tea and crumpets!
No, I'm not.
No, I will hear it!
In England, and also over here because I like English BBC dramas, because you can't take that out of me sometimes. And it has and like I said, the thing about Kane is it has a lot of experimental storytelling. It's in black and white, and it's just a solidly good crime comic with a good cop lead character in it. And I really recommend it, about him coming to a new town and taking care of things. Hey, we all have our, if a formula works, you go with it. Kane is a really underrated crime book. There's about 6 volumes worth of content, and I would check it out. It's worth something, and it's not like we're going to get felled by a Warren Ellis anytime soon. When talking about comics, we want to talk about a variety of genres here, and, I wanted to make sure we talk about as much as possible. So, in this case, we're going to talk about young adult material. Not that one. Not that one. Definitely not that one. We're going to talk about Blue Monday. Blue Monday is a comic that was kind of big when I was younger. I'll have to say this. For a long time, there's always like a generation, the comics that girls tend to like. I hate saying that. To give you an idea here, one day I'm going to get to this one, Strangers in Paradise, one day, but we're not here to talk about this one today. This is 100 issues worth of drama that I have no time to sum up right now. We'll do Blue Monday. It's only 4 volumes. Maybe more. Blue Monday was one of the big indie books I remember from my generation, at least advertised a lot. The artist, whose name I totally China Clunkston. China Clunkston. Wow, that's a hard name. Has a really great manga-like style. If you look up any of her art, you kind of get this kind of classical Archie meets anime style. And I think she even worked for Archie, but we're not here to talk about that right now. What it is that it's a teen comedy. It's a teen comedy comic. And it's focused on a girl named Blue who is in love with the band, well, I should say Adam Ant. Yeah, like, this is a little... I didn't even realize Adam Ant was a real thing when reading this at the time. Like I said, it was early 2000s, and by the time I was actually getting into the series, I was, about 13. I didn't know who some of these things were or what it was referencing. Sue me. I wasn't 13 in 2000, actually. Anyway, me and my vaguish age aside, this was kind of like a teen book I saw. And I would later see the artist go on to Ultimate Spider-Man. Now, this comic book is of its time. It's very 2000s. But it also has some fan service. Yes, actually a comic targeted towards girls with a little fan service. I know, right? It was a fun book for its time, with a lot of fun characters. Like, basically a lot of banter, antics, love triangles, the whole 9-yard work. And Blue Monday had some really nice art. Like, I can stare into any of these pages, and it's just fun. She has such an expressive style to it. And honestly, I'm kind of just sad that not a lot of people talk about this book. It feels like it's often forgotten in terms of books. Like, yeah, people who know it, but not a lot of people do. Like, honestly, not a lot of people know the American comic book scene that well, I feel sometimes. Or indie comics. Like, this wasn't a big 2 book. So, I feel like it kind of got lost. And also moved publishers a couple times. These are from Omi Press, and I definitely know the newest volumes are not by them. And I gotta say, it's a good book to track down if you want a good romantic comedy book. It reads a little old, but if you're into that 2000-ish vibe, you can definitely check it out and maybe get something out of it. Like I said, if you like something like Bring It On, well, maybe not like Bring It On, but like if you want like one of those classic teen romantic comedies at the turn of the century, yeah, no, that's definitely what this comic is for. It's a little bit more hard R in some cases, and like I said, very hard R. There's a lot of shit jokes in this one. Not like actually on screen, but you do. But again, this is a little more foul than most. I wouldn't call it South Park level, but sometimes it gets a little close. Now, with this one, like I said, it's not a hard book to find, and honestly, you can find volumes pretty cheap. I'd recommend this one if you really want like a solidly good teen romance comic that's not really too complicated to get into. Start with the first mini and you'll be good, and go on to the other ones. It's not a lot, it's not a heavy read, a heavy investment. It's just a solidly fun comic. And now we're going to get into something else. I talked about a romance comic, a crime comic, and a web comic. How about a TV tie-in comic?
Oh, lovely.
Yeah, it's a Doctor Who tie-in book. I know. So, let's talk about this. This is The Forgotten. It was created to kind of celebrate the Doctor Who legacy, and it's a story that takes place over, at the time, the 10 current Doctors. See, they're all on the back here. You can see 1 through 10. I can count to 10. But we don't count the War Doctor yet because he wasn't established. This was when the 10th Doctor was the main boy. Man, that feels like a long time ago. Hell, you can even see the original IDW logo on here. That giant eye. Right there. The Forgotten. Well, for one thing, why should you read it? Well, I actually have to recommend it if you're a Doctor Who fan. And now I'm gonna talk to all the Doctor Who fans out there in my audience. You're there, right? Hello? Okay. Why is it good? If you're getting into Doctor Who, I actually do recommend this comic as a great one. I actually think it's one of the best Doctor Who comics ever made. For one thing, the art is by Pia Guerrera. She did Y the Last Man, which is also getting an adaptation soon. Besides talking about that adaptation, the reason I'm recommending this one is that it's a very good story about the Doctor remembering his past and remembering like various different eras of the Doctor Who storyline. You get the third, the fourth, you get all the Doctors. And here's the thing. The reason I like this one a lot is for a couple reasons. One, it's a very easy story to digest. They don't introduce a lot of complicated concepts. And if you're not that familiar with every version of Doctor Who, you kind of get caught up very quickly. And I'm going to be honest, at the time this was a very gratifying story. Because I don't want to spoil the twist of it, you see. But I guess I'll spoil the twist a little bit. A little bit. Skip like a headish, maybe. Spoilers. In the Doctor Who thing, in this story, the Doctor is trapped in a station and he's kind of being helped with, like his mind is being affected. And it allows him to basically team up with versions of himself and his companions. And the last one that shows up really hit me in the heart because you actually see his granddaughter, Susan, who hasn't been seen since like way back in the day, honestly. She's kind of been forgotten by modern Doctor Who for reasons, like there's a lot of reasons. But this is a good Doctor Who story. Now, Doctor Who's not in the greatest shape right now, but I don't believe in turning down good stories. To me, this is one of those stories that you want to read during an anniversary. You want to read if you want to celebrate the character. The Forgotten is one of the best celebration stories in Doctor Who. It celebrates the entirety of the Doctor at the time. You get an 8 story, 7, 6, 5. You get all the Doctors at the time. Now, we're off the 13 Doctors, and then there's the War Doctor. They didn't exist yet. What can I say? But if you want a good, solid Doctor Who story that shows you the franchise at its best, guess what? This comic is right here. Track it down. See if you can find a copy on the cheap. I promise you, it's a good one. And sometimes that's all you need. You need a good comic that's about the Doctor. And that's one of the reasons I'm recommending this one. It's great. Honestly, what I liked about it was that it didn't make the 10th Doctor all about Rose. Oh, Rose. Dear Lord, it was hard to say goodbye to you. It was a different time. A different time for the Doctor. But for our last comic we're going to cover from the archives today, I'm covering Trigun. Wait. Trigun. What the hell is this? It's the first 6 episodes of Trigun. Wait, you might be asking yourselves, wasn't Trigun yes, it was a manga before an anime. What is this for? Like, is this like a redrawn adaptation of the... No. This is a comic that literally takes stills from the anime and makes it into a comic.
I'm like a sitting duck over here. I'm defenseless. Oh, shit.
an entirely worthless product. Okay. I maybe shouldn't say entirely worthless, but let me talk about this. Because this is a weird thing that was done. Now, you have to understand when manga became a thing, a lot of it ended up... There was a lot of weird growing pains in the industry. From full color to not full color. Because you might notice that the manga format is here. But here's the problem. You don't need the manga format, actually, to make this work. It's basically a comic. You can just read it like a book, like a regular comic book. It doesn't need to be this way. It's infuriating. Like, you read it right to left, but you could actually make it left to right. And so the comic can flow better. Okay, manga fans, you're going to hate me for this a little bit, and I get it. I know you guys are used to reading right to left. It's not a big deal. But the truth is, it is more efficient to read left to right if you're speaking English. You know one of the reasons why the Akira manga is actually printed that way is so that the manga feels more kinetic for readers. Otomo, when he brought it over, actually thought of that because he wanted it to actually move well when reading it. He thought the language was important enough that you had to read it in a format to make it work. So, look, I'm not faulting you if you do it or anything else. It's just that I'm okay with unflipped manga. I actually prefer it myself. Don't get me wrong here. But if you're an English speaker, you shouldn't have to do that. If you do it, then I call you the poser. This is turning Trigun into a poser. And Trigun already has a manga. Right here, this is the first volume before it got canceled and then became Trigun Maximum. I'm not here to talk about Trigun Maximum. This is entirely a useless product. And it's just infuriating to me. Because, look, like, oh, here's how you have to read it, but you didn't have to make it like this. It's not an actual manga. It's not a real manga. You just took the anime, and turned it into a comic. It takes the first 6 episodes of Trigun and turns it into this graphic novel. And it's anime manga, but it's not manga. It's literally it offers you nothing. It's not like DM of the Rings or... Look, this is an entirely useless product that I have because... Why did I buy it? Because I didn't have the anime DVDs at the time. It had a use back in the day. Nowadays, I don't know why I have it other than to just use an example of weird formats they used for comics or manga. Again, this is just something that you're not going to see a lot of. It's an odd book. It's not the only odd manga book I actually have, technically. But I wanted to show you, this is what we do here at the Archives. We take a look at 6 different volumes that I have in my collection that maybe don't deserve a full episode, but can be an interesting discussion point. So in this one, it adapts the first 6 episodes of the Trigun anime, which are the $60 billion Double Dollar Man, Truth of Mistake, Peacemaker, Love and Peace, Hard Puncher, and Lost July. Lost July is a great episode to end on, to be fair, because it hints at Vash's truer origin, but before the series gets really good. Frankly, one of the things that I do is actually I show off the Molotov the Gale episode if I want people to convince them to watch Trigun. But we're not here to talk about watching orders for anime. Actually, just watch Trigun first episode and keep going. It gets better, I promise. It's really good. Some people like the first episode. I've seen some people hate the first episode, though. They have terrible taste sometimes. What can I say? But Trigun's a great anime. It's actually my favorite anime of all time. I hacked the movie. I actually went to the premiere of the dub of the movie. Great shit. And Trigun was one of my favorites. It's good to see. I love Ash the Stampede. And at the time, Genion was kaput. I could not get a hold of any of the manga volumes. So at the time, I guess this did have a reason. I don't think Trigun was airing on Adult Swim anymore, and I wanted to watch the series again. I didn't know how to pirate stuff, and honestly, it was just a different time. So I guess you did have a use, but my God, are you entirely useless now? An entirely useless comic that's only fun for kind of the novelty. But I also have the Trigun manga. And if I actually want to read the manga, I get better art, better composition. I get so much better from this manga than that book. Oh well. It was a different time. I was young. I was stupid. I didn't know how to torrent. But it was a different time. Trigun, the cinemanga, the anime manga, the whatever this is an odd book in my collection. And I have it. It's weird. Maybe if they did a Darth and Droids treatment with this, it would be kind of interesting, but not really. It doesn't give you anything that, honestly, what you're trading from the anime to this, you're not getting anything special. You're losing movement. You're losing sound. You're losing voice work. You're losing so much in this adaptation that adds nothing. With the Trigun manga, though, you get a lot. You get Night Owl's amazing paneling. You get his comments. You get his artwork. Like, the Trigun manga is really good. But the anime manga, well, probably one of the weirdest things I have in my collection, but I have it. They also have one for Naruto, by the way. It adapts the 3 movies. I might talk about that someday. Maybe. But for now, please, for the love of God, get the Trigun manga if you can. And if you want it, this is an odd curiosity. And that's the show, and that was from the archives. That was my book collection. And if you're wondering how long I could keep this show up, let's see, how many bookcases do I have? About 11 of them. That's a generous estimate, by the way. I might have more. But until then, this has been Exalted Speed. Like, share, subscribe, and do what you can for the channel. Comment. And if you have any suggestions for future episodes, leave them in the comments. But this has been my comic collection, and this has been from the archives.